And so we see just except then he had one final line. He said, it's very similar to the design patterns we see in modern digital computer, except that it's being executed with an 8.0, 9.0, 10.0 elegance, anything beyond anything that we've ever done.
If God created the first cell, was it a perfect cell? Did God create the first virus? And did decay come from sin and or evil?
I think the first cell was an elegantly designed cell, and I write about this in Signature in the Cell, just the not only the genetic information, but the sophistication of the information processing systems that we find in even the simplest one-celled organisms, to say nothing of complex multicellular organisms like ourselves. When I was writing Signature in the Cell, we had in our office an architect level programmer from Microsoft who was helping my colleague 𝗥𝗲𝗃𝗏𝗧 write a program to simulate what's called the gene expression system, how the information in DNA regulates the production of the proteins and protein machines that cells need to stay alive. And one day he walked into my office and he threw a book down on my table very dramatically. He's a big, tall guy with kind of a shock of wild scientist-looking hair. And he said, "Steve, I get an eerie feeling that someone has figured this out before us." And I said, "What do you mean?" And the book, I looked down, it had the title Design Patterns. And it's apparently a standard textbook for software engineers and developers. And he said, and he explained to me that a design pattern was a sophisticated means of storing or processing information. And he said, as I'm writing the code to simulate what's going on in the DNA and in the gene expression system, I'm discovering there are all kinds of recognizable design patterns that we know of through high-tech digital computing. You've got automated error correction inside the cell. You've got a spell check on your laptop. We've got something similar inside the cell. We've got automated error correction. We've got nested coding of information. We've got information layered on top of other information. We've got, and he just ticked off all these sophisticated design patterns that were necessary to understand in order to write code to simulate how the DNA is being regulated. And so we see just except then he had one final line. He said, it's very similar to the design patterns we see in modern digital computer, except that it's being executed with an 8.0, 9.0, 10.0 elegance, anything beyond anything that we've ever done. So we still see powerful evidence of that aboriginal design at the foundation of life. And I think what's going on with virulence, whether it's in bacteria or in viruses, is evidence of the decay that we're told to expect in the natural world. Now, within the field of biblical theology, there are different concepts of what's called theodicy, how that deleterious effect on nature entered the world. Was it purely by human sin or human rebellion against God, or was there prior rebellion against God that also affected nature? And there are different theodicies, and we'll leave that for this discussion to the theologians. But the idea is that what we're told to expect biblically is those two things: decay as well as design as well as decay. And we see them both. And the Bible provides a backstory about how that happened. And biblical scholars interpret that backstory differently, but it has to do with rebellion against the Creator. And I think that's the Judeo-Christian understanding of why we live in a world that wasn't as it was first intended.